Imagine a world separated by a thin, treacherous channel of water. On one side, the mightiest military machine the world has ever known. On the other, a land shrouded in mist and mystery. This is the story of when those two worlds collided. Story of ambition, resistance, and the moment Rome first set its sights on the enigmatic island of Britain. Before we cross the channel, we must first understand Rome. In the mid-1st century BC, the Roman Republic was a powerhouse, relentlessly expanding its borders. And at the forefront of this expansion was one man, Gaius Julius Caesar, brilliant general, a shrewd politician, and a man with insatiable ambition. Having spent years campaigning in Gaul, conquering tribe after tribe, Caesar stood on the northern coast, gazing across the water. For him, Britain was not just an unknown land. It was an opportunity, a chance for military glory, political capital, and untold riches. The whispers in Rome were that Britain supplied aid to his Gallic enemies. Whether true or just a pretext, Caesar had his reason. The stage was set for an invasion. But what was this land that beckoned Caesar? Britain was far from the uncivilized backwater some Romans imagined. It was a patchwork of Celtic tribes, a land of dense forests, rolling hills, and formidable hill forts. These were skilled artisans, farmers, and fierce warriors. They had a rich culture, complex spiritual beliefs tied to the land, and extensive trade networks that reached across the continent. Their society was built on honor, loyalty to their chieftains, and a deep-seated love for their freedom. They were aware of Rome, but the idea of Roman legions landing on their shores was something entirely new, something they would not accept without a fight. In 55 BC, the moment arrived. Caesar assembled a fleet, gathering to legions around 10,000 men for his first expedition. This wasn't a full-scale conquest. It was a reconnaissance in force. He wanted to test the waters, gather intelligence, and show the Britons the power of Rome. But from the very beginning, the venture was plagued with problems. The Britons were waiting. As the Roman ships approached the coast near modern-day Deal, they saw the white cliffs lined with warriors. Finding a suitable landing spot was difficult, and when they finally did, the Britons were there to meet them, charging into the surf to attack the disembarking soldiers. The landing was a chaotic and bloody affair. The Roman soldiers, burdened by their heavy armor and wading through chest-deep water, were at a severe disadvantage. The Britons, nimble and familiar with the terrain, pressed their attack. It was only the bravery of the standard-bearer of the 10th Legion who leaped into the water, crying out for his comrades to follow. That turned the tide and spurred the Romans forward. But their victory was short-lived. A violent storm descended upon the channel, wrecking many of their ships and cutting off their supplies. Stranded in hostile territory, with dwindling food and constant harassment from British warriors, Caesar's first invasion quickly turned into a struggle for survival. He managed to make repairs, fight off a few more attacks, and retreat back to Gaul before winter set in. But it was a humbling experience. Rome was not invincible. Caesar was a man who did not tolerate failure. The next year, in 54 BC, he returned, and this time, he came prepared. His invasion force was immense, 5 legions and 2,000 cavalry, transported on over 800 ships. It was one of the largest amphibious assaults in ancient history. This was no longer a reconnaissance mission. This was a statement. This time, the landing was unopposed. The sheer size of the Roman fleet had intimidated the British tribes who had withdrawn from the coast to regroup inland. Caesar pushed his forces deep into enemy territory, seeking a decisive battle. But the Britons had a plan. They had united under a single charismatic leader, Cassivellaunus, chieftain of the Cativellani tribe. Instead of meeting the Romans in a pitched battle where the legions excelled, Cassivellaunus employed brilliant guerrilla tactics. He used his most fearsome weapon, the war chariot. These were fast, mobile platforms from which warriors could hurl javelins before disappearing back into the forests. They constantly harassed the Roman columns, attacking their foraging parties and supply lines, melting away before the heavy infantry could respond. It was a frustrating and costly campaign for the Romans. They were fighting an enemy who refused to play by their rules, an enemy who knew the land intimately. Eventually, Caesar's relentless advance in Roman engineering proved superior. He forced a crossing of the river Thames, stormed Cassivellaunus's stronghold, and through a combination of military pressure and diplomacy, began to turn other British tribes against him. Facing betrayal and the might of the Roman army, Cassivellaunus was forced to surrender. He agreed to pay a tribute to Rome and provide hostages, promising not to attack the Roman-allied tribes. Caesar, with his objectives met, and with unrest brewing back in Gaul, declared victory and withdrew his forces from Britain for the last time. He would never return. In the midst of grand strategies and political ambitions, it's easy to forget the human element. For the individual Roman legionary, this was a terrifying campaign in a cold, wet and alien land, fighting a shadowy enemy. For the British warrior, it was a desperate fight for their homes, their families, and their way of life. The fields of Kent were soaked in the blood of both invader and defender. Caesar's account, written in his famous book, The Gallic Wars, paints a picture of Roman superiority, self-promoting narrative designed to boost his image back in Rome. But reading between the lines, we can see the struggle, the setbacks, and the brutal reality of this ancient conflict. So what was the legacy of Caesar's invasions? In the short term, not much changed. Tribute was likely never paid, and Rome's direct influence vanished as soon as the last ship sailed away. But the long-term impact was profound. Caesar had pulled back the curtain on the mysterious island. It gathered vital intelligence about its people, its resources, and its geography. He established diplomatic ties that would be exploited later. His expeditions created a precedent, placing Britain firmly in the Roman mindset as a prize to be won. Almost a century later, in 43 AD, Emperor Claudius would launch the full-scale conquest that Caesar had paved the way for. This time, the Romans came to stay, and the course of British history was changed forever. As the sun sets over the white cliffs, we are reminded that great historical changes often begin not with a conquest, but with a single, audacious glimpse across the water. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this look into Roman history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories from the ancient world.